current job, I haven't had the opportunity to interview anybody. But I know like in my past jobs, like as a CUNY student, I also work almost similar to Roberto. I worked in admissions. So there I had the opportunity to interview students. And I feel like it kind of is the same across the board. Maybe not necessarily like project management, like Reza, but like within media, it's I would say like for resumes, 1 page. Many times I've seen that people still do 2 pages because depending on your industry. But I'm not really sure if it's different in other industries, but I do know that if a recruiter is looking at your resume, they just want to go to the point. Not too much fluff, if so to say, but just being more concise on what you're doing, showing numbers that speaks, what you have done in the past. And just overall cover letters are also, I feel like, again, depending on the field. For my job, I know we don't require cover letters, but I would just suggest to really do your research. Again, this is where LinkedIn plays a role on knowing people in the industry. They will give you the insights that you probably won't see in a job listing, put you in contact with a recruiter that might, you might be able to swerve that cover letter and just focus on your resume. Just because I feel like cover letters, sometimes it's like, oh my God, it's more pressure. It's like resume is already pressure on you. And then a cover letter, it's like, oh my God, now it's another document. So yeah, like personally, I feel like that's my tip. It's very general, but just making sure that your resume is to the point, tailored to the job, and making sure that you know somebody probably in HR or trying to get a hint of what you need to submit for the job application.
And to add, what about buzzwords, like specific skills or specific buzzwords, maybe in a job description? I mean, sometimes companies will use the ATS, the applicant tracking system, and it scans for buzzwords. Do you have anything to say in terms of that? Like, students should be mindful of what is being said in the job description. And like you said, it's not fluff.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I feel like, again, it depends on the industry. Like when I landed my job opportunity, I feel like what stood out to them was the fact that I was an intern already. I feel like probably on my next journey into finding another media job, I will be able to know more on what the buzzwords that they're looking for. But I do know, like from speaking to HR, we do have like month-to-month check-ins. They always like to check up on us, like working from home. They do mention that a lot of the times they're looking at your LinkedIn profiles, not necessarily so much your resume at times. Like now they're finding new ways to find who you are, especially since there's no in-person interview. So it's like kind of getting a hint of social media platforms and things like that. So I recently found that out. So that's surprising. So yeah.
For resume, my resume is 2 pages. I have a 1-page version if a company needs it. I've been lucky enough to be on the other side of interviewing. So I've been on a couple panels for roles for either my team or other teams who will look for, like, they do it by function. So like they'll have analysts and interview. I won't get into it, but basically I've been the PM representative for a role in that panel. So I basically just get sent the resume and their name, and that's about it. So not having it be too long, I've seen some wild, like 6-page resumes that like, I'll be honest, I've gone into interviews not having even read the resume, but if I have, it's within like an hour of meeting the person. So, and I'm giving like a quick skim. So I try to get as much as I can, but be able to speak to what's on your resume as well. I know a lot of times people put these little the buzzwords and the numbers and things like that, but not that I've called people out on it, but I will bring it up, or I'll ask, and sort of whether it's a gap in your resume, or I'll ask like sort of what happened here, or if there's anything that seems like really impressive or a little like interesting, or in a good way as well. Like if they've done something, I'll just sort of like poke at it and see what they say. But for the actual interview itself, so I give a good look at the resume, but I really look at the actual interview to see, especially if it's for someone that I'll be working with really closely. I kind of just go with like like the vibe, basically like the gut check. I see what they say, and if I can really see myself working with this person, we have like a thumbs up, thumbs down process at the time. So, and then we can kind of elaborate. So the hope is that you get all thumbs ups, but I really look at like, does this person have the qualities or the sort of like the team, like, are they a team player basically? And like, because especially with like teams that like product teams, you're so in the day to day with these people that if you can't work well with someone, then it's a thumbs down. But I really just use that question of like, they've said all these things. Do I get the sense that I can work with this person?
In regards to the resume, I think definitely the keywords definitely are what gets you there. And that's the important part. It's partially important, right? And I'll be that assertive in saying that, because the resume is what gets you into the door, right? Or gets you past the door, but then is what you do, right? So you have to know your resume. I've been in instances where people don't know what they even put on their resume, right? And so when you start asking them about their experience, they're like, you see them stumped, right? The other thing, I think what Reza was saying, right? The important questions, right? A lot of times you look at interviews as just being a one-way street, but it's actually a two-way street, right? As you being the person who's being interviewed, you're also trying to get a sense of what that culture looks like. So I've been one to ask, what does the culture look like in this organization? What does the culture look like for this particular department, right? And a lot of times I think the interviewees are not, or the interviewer, right? And sometimes depending who it is, they're not ready, right, for some of these questions, right? When they're a little bit more like thought out. So I definitely, to piggyback again on Reza's comments about like, there's definitely the cliche questions, which you can like, okay, they're mundane, but there are other questions that definitely from both ends, right? You have to be more aware of like what you're asking. And so the other part is definitely being able to, and I'm sorry if I go into the interview part, but being able to show your passion. I've had an experience myself where I made it to the last round. I met with the provost of the particular college, and they could smell that I was BS. And I'll just say it like that, right? They could just see it, right? And one of the things is the body language, right? I saw her eyes squinting at me when I was talking about like the things that I've done. And I was like, did I do something wrong? She's squinting at me like, what's going on with this? But like, I was all confused, right? And it made me lose my focus because I was so worried about what was happening with her. To come to realize, and I was grateful to find out what had happened in the interview was that they said they didn't really feel that my passion was genuine. It felt like it was fake. Right, that I was just reading what I had on my resume, that it was just there, it was just words, it was just jargon, but they couldn't sense the passion, right? So I think when you're going into a job interview, be honest, right? Is this the job that you want to do, right? And if it's the job that you want to do, then it's going to reflect when you're interviewing. People are going to see the passion. People are going to see, wow, okay, this is the person that I want to work with, right? Because they have the energy. Right. I've also been in situations where people on the other end that are interviewing, they are like, they're probably tired, right? They've probably interviewed so many people already that when they get to you, how are you going to be different from the rest of those other individuals, right? And so it's the passion, right? Really, exemplifying that passion. And from that experience alone, that's taught me so much, right? So if you're able to interview and if it doesn't work out, if you're able to find out what were things that were really good and what were things that you could work on, consider that a blessing, right? Because those will help you be a better interviewee for the next position.
Make sure to check out the My Career tab on the BC Navigator app, where you can track your career progress based on the amount of credits you've earned, stay updated on upcoming events from the Magner Center, and watch our videos for insight and advice on your career field.